Alright, good afternoon everyone. We are here with break 360. Well, the first half of break 360 anyway. The break consists of a 25 NRL Traders Titanium Case, which we have here. Pardon? Oh, yeah. Oh. And we'll be following up with the 21 Traders tomorrow. Dolphins will receive the $100 gift card because they're not included in the 21 Traders case at all. So today is the only day that Dolphins are included. Let's go through that team list. Good afternoon, Alex. I have put a trivia question up. Alex jumped in quite quickly and put the answer up, which I wasn't surprised, to be honest. But in my defense, I did try and pick one in your era, as you call it. So we were right. We just need to find one a bit more out there. Alright, our team list for today: Broncos, Ray Steptoe, Raiders, Lee Marshall, Bulldogs, Craig Milson, Sharks, Nathan Von Diest, Dolphins, Nicholas Verway, Titans, Nicholas Verway, Manly, Trent Kinnersley, Storm, Nicholas Verway, Knights, Glenn Howlett, Cowboys, Peter Lowe, Eels, Peter Lowe, Panthers, Toby J, Rabbitohs, Scott Crimo, Dragons, Ray Steptoe, Roosters, Nicholas Verway, Warriors, Peter Lowe, Tigers, Lee Marshall. Your brother's the origin. Alright, let's go find out who's getting a case card. Number 62, Aaron Woods for Manly, Trent Kinnersley. Number 8, let's get these out. Yes, I found it actually more interesting where the fourth game was played. And I went with that one because 87's my birth year, so it stuck out to me. The only year so far an Origin match has been played outside of Australia. I actually didn't see who won it. Who won the fourth match, or the series for that matter. Alright. What was the whole thing I actually had? Played in Long Beach, California. There you go. New South Wales won 30-18. Still, I couldn't get through the banner. There you go. Oh, sorry. Alright. Box number 1. Yeah, that's what Tad's just yelled out from the background. didn't want to do that yet. Oh well. Season to remember. The hammer for the Dolphins. Kalen Ponga, parallel for the Knights. Fan faves, Nico Hines for the Sharks. Kyle Flanagan, parallel for the Dragons. Rivalry pre-sales are up. G'day Lee, welcome to the break and good luck. Rising Stars, Casey McLean for Panthers. Jerome Hughes, parallel for the Storm. They've got starter packs this year, so we've got a bundle, a box and 2 starter packs. Max Plath, Club Heroes for the Dolphins. Alexander Brimson, parallel for the Titans. We still have break 362 listed. We'll be selling rivalry singles. Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, I can't see why not. That's sort of what we do. Women's NRL, Ellie Johnston for the Sharks. Warriors parallel checklist. What was the case card? The Aaron Woods for Manly. Rising Stars, Dan Kerr for the Eels. Patrick Carrigan, parallel for the Broncos. Rising Stars, Ethan King for the Roosters. Hudson Young, parallel for the Raiders. Season to remember, Daniel Tupou for the Roosters. Alex Johnston, parallel for the Rabbitohs. Fan faves, Herbie Farnworth for the Dolphins. Dolphins parallel checklist. When was the first year 2 teams won their first ever finals game in the same weekend? Rising Star, Sione for now for Dragons. Daly Cherry Evans, parallel for Manly. Matt Burton, converters for Bulldogs. Lachlan Galvin, parallel for the Tigers. Women's NRL, Jakaya Whitfield for the Cowboys. Renato Molitalo, parallel for the Sharks. And to be fair, Alex, you didn't ruin it. The whole reason I started doing it was because of you. I've enjoyed doing them with you, so I thought I would put in some effort and return the favour. Gold converters, Zahara Tamara for the Raiders. But unfortunately, I have no idea with yours most of the time. Rising Stars, Lily Peacock for the Cowboys. Bradman Best, parallel for the Knights. Season to remember, Zach Lomax for the Dragons. Luciano Leilua, parallel for the Dragons. Fan phase, Patrick Carrigan for the Broncos. Storm parallel checklist. Gold parallel number 9. Ella Costa for the Dragons. Rising Stars, Evie McGrath for the Tigers. Roosters parallel checklist. Roger Tuivasa-Sheck for the Warriors. Jeremiah Nanai, parallel for Cowboys. Retirements, David Nofaluma for the Tigers. Morgan Smithies, parallel for the Raiders. Rising Stars, Kai Pearce-Paul for the Knights. Cameron Murray, parallel for the Rabbitohs. Don't forget, we've got Toby J with the Panthers. Don't forget, if we hit a predictor tomorrow, that's still redeemable. Sam Walker, converters for the Roosters. Felice Kafusi, parallel for the Dolphins. I like them though, that's different. Yeah. Ella Costa, women's NRL for the Dragons. We've already hit her in this box. It's Hamali Olika Atu, parallel for Manly. Or was that the gold? Maybe that was the gold. In that case, that's alright. Samuel Stone Street, Rising Stars for the Sharks. Tigers, a parallel checklist. Season to remember, Chad Townsend for the Cowboys. William Kennedy, parallel for the Sharks. Fan phase, a Dream Buller for the Tigers. Lee Marshall ended up with the Raiders. Dylan Lucas, parallel for Knights after a trade. Rising Stars, Caleb Neville for Manly. Raymond Faitala Mariner, parallel for the Dragons. Season to remember, Matt Burton for the Bulldogs. Dylan Edwards, parallel for Panthers. Fan faves, Jessica Surgis for the Roosters. Bryce Cartwright, parallel for the Eels. Rising Stars, Leilani Montgomery for the Titans. Jacob Preston, parallel for the Bulldogs. Showcase, Luke Brooks for Manly. Connor Watson, parallel for the Roosters. Gold parallel, number 71. Jacob Preston for the Bulldogs. Parallel, Jason Taumalolo for the Cowboys. Why not? Raiders have given him their blessings. Rising Stars, Harry Hayes for the Bulldogs. Well, most of the Raiders that I know of anyway. Mawaiki Fodawaika, parallel for Titans. Obviously would lose him as the Australian coach, but yeah. Ben Faves for the Knights in the team. Chance Nico Klokstad, parallel for the Warriors. In general, I believe you'd bring that respect from the players. He's got the experience, so yeah. I think it should be good for the Bears anyway. Club Heroes, Tom Dearden for the Cowboys. Adam Reynolds, parallel for the Broncos. Rising Stars, Jai Gray for the Rabbitohs. Liam Martin, parallel for Panthers. Season to remember, Jaden Campbell for the Titans. Sean Lane, parallel for the Eels. Last packet for our first box. Fan phase, Stephen Crichton for the Bulldogs. And Jacob Carraz, parallel for the Bulldogs. First box done and dusted. Let's go with box number 2. All right. Season to remember, Samantha Bremner for the Roosters. Jai Arrow, parallel for the Rabbitohs. Fan phase, Mark Nichols for the Dolphins. Jack Bostock, parallel for the Dolphins. Rising Stars, Lycan King Togia for the Dragons. Luke Brooks, parallel for Manly. Club Heroes, Julia Robinson for the Broncos. Justin Olam, parallel for the Tigers. Millie Elliott, Women's NRL for the Roosters. Sharks, parallel checklist. Dylan Edwards in the gold, parallel number 66. Rising Stars, Jackson Purdue for Cowboys. Kai Pearce-Paul, parallel for the Knights. Reed Marnie, fan faves for the Bulldogs. Max King, parallel for the Bulldogs. Rising Stars, Lachlan Galvin for the Tigers. Victor Radley, parallel for the Roosters. Converters, Nick Meaney for the Storm. Murray Talagi, parallel for Cowboys. Women's Knights checklist. KO Weeks, parallel for the Raiders. How do you feel about now being named as the Perth coach? Rising Stars, Lily Ann White for the Knights. David Totola, parallel for the Rabbitohs. Season to remember, Kyle Felt for the Cowboys. Jeremy Marshall King, parallel for the Dolphins. Don't forget, guys, we have Game 2 State of Origin giveaway in our Facebook group. Must have made a purchase prior to the game. You have to like the post in the Facebook group and comment with the score and the winning team. Fan faves, Saratoga Tukey for the Tigers. Manly parallel checklist. Rising Stars, Liam Eason for the Sharks. Adam Dewey, parallel for the Tigers. Women's NRL, number 142, Lasana Lutu for the Tigers. Well, that's, yeah. Thomas Hazelton parallel for the Sharks. Club Heroes Liam Henry for the Panthers. Phoenix Crossland parallel for the Knights. Rising Stars Ethan Bullimore for Manly. Jaden Sewer parallel for the Dragons. We will be kicking the 21 Traders case off nice and early tomorrow morning. Josiah Karapani for the Broncos, Rising Stars. Joe Offengawi parallel for the Tigers. For the Eels, sorry. Yes, I have football training in the afternoon. So, yes, busy day. Converters, Jaden Campbell for the Titans. Belami Kickout parallel for the Bulldogs. Linens NRL Tiana Penatani for the Sharks. Spencer Lenu parallel for the Roosters. Rising Stars Jack Bostock for the Dolphins. Cowboys parallel checklist. Season to remember, Jai Arrow for the Rabbitohs. Joseph Tarpanay parallel for the Raiders. Fan faves, Tommy Dearden for the Cowboys. Jack Whiten parallel for the Rabbitohs. Rising Stars, Dimitri for the Warriors. The Hammer parallel for the Dolphins. Season to remember, Alexis for the Dragons. Jacob Little parallel for the Dragons. Who do you reckon will be first Bears sign? Ooh. Payne Haas. There you go. Fan phase, Reece Welsh for the Broncos. Nick Meaney parallel for the Storm. Rising Stars, Lapoy for the Bulldogs. Jaden Campbell parallel for Titans. Showcase, Lachlan Galvin for the Tigers. Mitchell Barnett parallel for the Warriors. Gold Converters, Mitchell Moses for the Eels. Here we go. I'm very excited. Hopefully it means we can check. Yeah. Well, that's Broncos parallel checklist. I know Wayne Bennett has that bull, but no offense to him, he's starting to get a bit on. I say that, but have you seen him train? He out-trains the boys, I reckon. Rising Stars, Peter for the Rabbitohs. Tackling Machines, Keely Joseph for the Broncos, number 40. Scott Sorensen, parallel for Panthers. Season to remember, Jamie Chapman for the Titans. Mitchell Moses, parallel for the Eels. Maybe that's where Wayne Bennett should go next. Go and coach the Aussie squad. Katoni Staggs, season to remember for the Broncos. Xavier Coates, parallel for Storm. Fan phase, Tommy Turbo for Manly. Alifiana Kampi Era, parallel for Titans. Fan faves in the team for the Tigers. Rising Stars, Lazarus for the Storm. Roger Tuivasa Sheck, parallel for the Warriors. Hope everyone's got their tips in for round 14. Showcase, Ethan Strange for the Raiders. Katoni Staggs, parallel for the Broncos. Retirements, Thomas Burgess for the Rabbitohs. Isaac Tago, parallel for Panthers. Just a reminder, if you haven't already, you can still join the tipping comp. It doesn't matter where you're coming overall, so you can start with 0 and you can win round 14. It's not based on overall, it's based on each round. So if you're not already in, make sure you join. And you could be next round's top tipper, scoring the $50 gift card. Costs nothing to join, everyone's eligible. Along with the State of Origin Game 2 giveaway in the Facebook group. We're also only a few members away from our next member giveaway in there too. So lots going on. Ronaldo Mulatalo, season to remember for the Sharks. Titans parallel checklist. Fan faves, Ethan Strange for the Raiders. Wade Egan, parallel for the Warriors. Gold parallel, David Fafita for the Titans, number 13. Rising Stars, Charlie Agama for the Eels. Selwyn Cobbo, parallel for the Broncos. Club Heroes, Tamika Upton for the Knights. Moses Leota, parallel for Panthers. Rising Stars, Lycan King Togia for the Dragons. Luke Brooks, parallel for Manly. Season to Remember, Sanua Tarua for Panthers. Justin Olam, parallel for the Tigers. Fan phase, Jaden Campbell for the Titans. Sharks parallel checklist. Not going to lie, guys, but it's been a while since I've hit a Legends SIG, so I'm sort of hoping that in one of these boxes we're due. Rising Stars, Jackson Purdue for the Cowboys. Kai Pearce-Paul, parallel for the Knights. The Converters, Nico Hines for the Sharks. Jacob Little, parallel for the Dragons. Women's NRL, Emma Manzelman for the Cowboys. Nick Meaney, parallel for the Storm. Fan faves in the team for the Roosters. Rising Stars, Boy for the Bulldogs. Jaden Campbell, parallel for the Titans. Sorry. Alright, season to remember, Jamal Fogarty for the Raiders. Mitchell Barnett, parallel for the Warriors. Fan faves, Alex Johnston for the Rabbitohs. Broncos parallel checklist. Rising Stars, Peter for the Rabbitohs. Scott Sorensen, parallel for Panthers. Women's NRL in the gold, parallel, Tegan Berry, 150. Mitchell Moses, parallel for the Eels. Showcase a Roger Tuivasa-Sheck for the Warriors. Jeremy Marshall King, parallel for the Dolphins. Retirements, Tyrone Peachy for the Panthers. Parallel Manly Checklist. Rising Stars, Liam Eason for the Sharks. Adam Dewey, parallel for the Tigers. Converters, Adam Pompey for the Warriors. Thomas Hazelton, parallel for the Sharks. Women's NRL, Racine McGregor for the Warriors. Phoenix Crossland, parallel for the Knights. Rising Stars, Ethan Bullimore for Manly. Jaden Sewer, parallel for the Dragons. Season to remember, Clinton Gufferson for the Eels. Xavier Coates, parallel for the Storm. Fan faves, Josh King for the Storm. Alifiana Kampi Era, parallel for Titans. Rising Stars, Lazarus for the Storm. Roger Tuivasa Shek, parallel for Warriors. Women's NRL Sharks Checklist. Jermaine Hopgood, parallel for the Eels. Rising Stars, Tony Francis for the Titans. Connor Tracy, parallel for the Bulldogs. Season to remember, Tommy Talau for Manly. Dominic Young, parallel for the Roosters. Not sure we'll make Bears outfit need justice to making a super team test. You know. Can't blame him, can you? Fan phase, Brian To'o for the Panthers. Ruben Cotter, parallel for the Cowboys. It'd be nice to be able to receive one of those paper bags. There's no way you can be putting a team like that together. Rising Stars, Alaya Nasio for the Roosters. Jamal Fogarty, parallel for the Raiders. Showcase, Herbie Farmworth for the Dolphins. Jai Arrow, parallel for the Rabbitohs. The Converters, Jaden Campbell for the Titans. Jack Bostock, parallel for the Dolphins. Club Heroes, Samula Fanu for the Tigers. Max King, parallel for Bulldogs. Rising Stars, Lachlan Galvin for the Tigers. Victor Radley, parallel for the Roosters. Season to remember, Adam Dewey for the Tigers. Murray Talagi, parallel for the Cowboys. Fan faves, Kalen Ponga for the Knights. KO Weeks, parallel for the Raiders. Knights not happy they got to sit Ponga out because of Origin. Rising Stars, Lily Ann White for the Knights. Tavita Totola, parallel for the Rabbitohs. And that's the end of box number 3. Alright, box number 4. Alright. Sally Faye, season to remember for the Eels. Blake Brayley, parallel for the Sharks. Fan Faves, Ryan Pappenhausen for the Storm. Knights parallel checklist. Women's NRL, Jasmine Peters for the Cowboys. 194. What's the consensus with stand alone Origin? As in playing them separately, I believe they should be played the same night. Number one, fans are getting 2 games for their tickets. The only problem with that is you're going to have to move it to a weekend to accommodate that. But yeah, like, if you've truly watched a women's game, then you can't tell me that the men's game's any better. Rising Stars, Lehe Hopawate for Manly. And I am talking about one of our local games. I'm not talking about the Australia versus England. Tyrell Sloan, parallel for the Dragons. Look at the Indigenous or the Origins. Club Heroes, Jaden Sewer for the Dragons. Cameron Munster, parallel for the Storm. Gold Converters, Adam Pompey for the Warriors. Rising Stars, Oren Keefe for the Dolphins. Tommy Dearden, parallel for the Cowboys. Season to remember, Jerome Hughes for the Storm. Xavier Savage, parallel for the Raiders. Fan faves, Kennedy Sherrington for the Eels. Cody Walker parallel for the Rabbitohs. Rising Stars, Moala Graham for the Warriors. Max Platt parallel for the Dolphins. Converters, Rachel Pearson for the Eels. Jake Trbojevic parallel for Manly. Women's NRL Tigers Checklist. Alex Seyfarth parallel for the Tigers. Rising Stars, Grace Kemp for the Raiders. Brighton Nakora parallel for the Sharks. Season to remember, the Hammer for the Dolphins. Kalen Ponga parallel for the Knights. I just realised you might have actually meant playing the Origin outside of the standard series. So either before round 1 or after the grand final. I think that's what you mean. And yeah, well, why not after the grand final? The only problem is you're going to have the celebrating teams and a lot of other people that haven't played for a few weeks. And yeah, fan phase, Nico Hines for the Sharks. Kyle Flanagan parallel for the Dragons. Rising Stars, Casey McLean for Panthers. Jerome Hughes parallel for Storm. Dolphins fan phase in the team. Alexander Brimson parallel for the Titans. Club Heroes, Tommy Turbo for Manly. Yep, girls played Origin before their seasons. Why not have men mid-season too? Warriors, a parallel checklist. Excuse me. Rising Stars, Dan Kerr for the Eels. Patrick Carrigan. Oh. Parallel for the Broncos. Retirements, Jordan Rapana for the Raiders. Jason Tormalolo parallel for the Cowboys. Rising Stars, Ethan King for the Roosters. Parallel Hudson Young for the Raiders. Converters, Scott Drinkwater for the Cowboys. Alex Johnston parallel for the Rabbitohs. Women's NRL, Kennedy Sherrington for the Eels. Dolphins parallel checklist. Rising Stars, Sione for the Dragons. Daly Cherry Evans, parallel for Manly. Season to remember, Daniel Tupou for the Roosters. Lachlan Galvin, parallel for the Tigers. Not anymore. Hey guys. Now with the Bulldogs. Fan phase, Herbie Farmworth for the Dolphins. Ronaldo Mulatalo, parallel for the Sharks. Rising Stars, Lily Peacock for the Cowboys. Bradman Best, parallel for the Knights. Stacey Awaka, Women's NRL for the Broncos. David Fafita, parallel for the Titans. Rising Stars for the Storm. Tohu Harris, parallel for the Warriors. Season to remember, Sean Johnson for the Warriors. Ezra Mam, parallel for the Broncos. Fan phase, Blake Laurie for the Dragons. Isaiah Yeo, parallel for Panthers. Rising Stars, Skylar Adams for the Broncos. Parallel, Micah Sivo for the Eels. Showcase, Valami Kickout for the Bulldogs. Bulldogs parallel checklist. Tommy Turbo, number 14 in the gold parallel. Lindsay Collins, parallel for the Roosters. Season to remember, Matt Burton for the Bulldogs. And Dylan Edwards, parallel for Panthers. Fan phase, Jessica Surgis for the Roosters. Bryce Cartwright, parallel for the Eels. 2 packets left, box number 4. Rising Stars, Lalani Montgomery for the Titans. Jacob Preston, parallel for the Bulldogs. Showcase, Kalen Ponga for the Knights. Connor Watson, parallel for the Roosters. Box number 5. Season to remember, Alex Johnston for the Rabbitohs. Bulldogs parallel checklist. Fan phase, Ruben Cotter for the Cowboys. Lindsay Collins parallel for the Roosters. Rising Stars, Oren Keeley for the Dolphins. Tommy Dearden parallel for the Cowboys. Club Heroes, Elsie Albert for the Eels. Xavier Savage parallel for the Raiders. Women's NRL, Tegan Berry for the Dragons. Cody Walker parallel for the Rabbits. Women's NRL in the gold, 109, Zali Faye for the Eels. Rising Stars, Moala Graham for the Warriors. Parallel, Max Plath for the Dolphins. Jermaine Isako, gold parallel for the Dolphins. Number 71. Parallel, Kyle Flanagan for the Dragons. Rising Stars, Casey McLean for the Panthers. Jerome Hughes, parallel for the Storm. Season to remember, Anessa Biddle for the Sharks. Alexander Brimson, parallel for the Titans. Fan faves, KO Weeks for the Raiders. Warriors parallel checklist. Gold parallel for the Converters, Kyle Flanagan in the Dragons. Rising Stars, Dan Kerr for the Eels. Patrick Carrigan parallel for the Broncos. The Converters, Jermaine Isako for the Dolphins. Dylan Edwards parallel for Panthers. Women's NRL, Lauren Brown for the Titans. Bryce Cartwright, parallel for the Eels. Rising Stars, Leilani Montgomery for the Titans. Jacob Preston, parallel for the Bulldogs. Season to remember, Tommy Turbo for Manly. Connor Watson, parallel for the Roosters. Fan Faves, Dylan Edwards for the Panthers. Jason Tormalolo, parallel for the Cowboys. Rising Stars, Ethan King for the Roosters. Hudson Young, parallel for the Raiders. Fan Faves in the team for Titans. Alex Johnston, parallel for the Rabbitohs. Rising Stars, Lily Peacock for the Cowboys. Bradman Best, parallel for the Knights. Showcase, Tommy Dearden for the Cowboys. Luciano Leilua, parallel for the Dragons. Retirements, Jesse Bromwich for the Storm. Storm parallel checklist. Parallel Mawaki Fodawaika for the Titans. Reed Marnie, parallel for Bulldogs. Converters, Adam Reynolds for the Broncos. Chance Nico Klokstad, parallel for the Warriors. Women's NRL, Romy Teetle for the Broncos. Adam Reynolds, parallel for the Broncos. Rising Stars, Jai Gray for the Rabbitohs. Liam Martin, parallel for Panthers. Season to remember, Hudson Young for the Raiders. Sean Lane, parallel for the Eels. Fan phase, Latrell Mitchell for the Rabbitohs. Jacob Carraz, parallel for the Bulldogs. Rising Stars, Evie McGrath for the Tigers. Roosters parallel checklist. Season to remember, Tamika Upton for the Knights. Jake Trbojevic, parallel for Manly. Fan phase, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck for the Warriors. Alex Seyfarth, parallel for the Tigers. Rising Stars, Grace Kemp for the Raiders. Brighton Nakora, parallel for the Sharks. Showcase, Herbie Farnworth for the Dolphins. Kalen Ponga, parallel for the Knights. Club Heroes, Keanu Kinney for the Titans. Dolphins parallel checklist. 3 packets left for box number 5. Rising Star, Sione for the Dragons. Daly Cherry Evans, parallel for Manly. Season to remember, Nathan Cleary for the Panthers. Lachlan Galvin, parallel for the Tigers. And last but not least, fan phase, Jamie Chapman for the Titans. Renato Molitalo, parallel for the Sharks. Alright, another box down, done and dusted. Rising Stars, Joe Curran for the Storm. Jackson Ford, parallel for the Warriors. Showcase, Lindsay Collins for the Roosters. Harry Grant, parallel for the Storm. Season to remember, Tane Topiki for the Warriors. Sorry. Payne Haas, parallel for the Broncos. Fan phase, Jaden Sewer for the Dragons. Nathan Cleary, parallel for Panthers. Rising Stars, Benjamin Takura for the Broncos. Dylan Brown, parallel for the Eels. Fan phase, Harry Grant for the Storm. Dylan Lucas, parallel for the Knights. Rising Stars, Caleb Navale for Manly. Raymond Fatala Mariner, parallel for the Dragons. Converters, Pauline Razabel for the Tigers. Stephen Crichton, parallel for the Bulldogs. Women's NRL, Mahalia Murphy for the Eels. Angus Crichton, parallel for the Roosters. Season to remember, Regan Campbell Gillard for the Eels. William Kennedy, parallel for the Sharks. Fan faves in the team for Dragons. Rising Stars, Max Plath for the Dolphins. Elam Lukey, parallel for the Cowboys. Season to remember, Xavier Coates for the Storm. Ethan Strange, parallel for the Raiders. Fan faves, Mitchell Moses for the Eels. Rodos parallel checklist. Rising Stars, Samuel Stonestreet for the Sharks. Tigers parallel checklist. Rising Stars, Jacob Laban for the Warriors. Herbie Farmworth parallel for the Tigers. We have a Team Sig, number 62, Jakaya Whitfield. Tommy Talau, parallel for Manly. Club Heroes, Kale Iro for the Sharks. Charlie Staines, parallel for Tigers. Gold parallel, number 104, Tamika Upton for the Knights. Big Tino, parallel for the Titans. Rising Stars, Morgan Smithies for the Raiders. Jesse Ramian, parallel for the Sharks. Women's NRL Keezy apps for the Tigers. Amali Olaka-Atu parallel for Manly. Season to remember, Herbie Farmworth for the Dolphins. Leo Thompson parallel for the Knights. Fan faves, Tiana Penatani for the Sharks. Blake Laurie parallel for the Dragons. Excuse me. Rising Stars, Maverick Gaia for the Panthers. Eliza Katoa parallel for the Storm. Showcase Kalen Ponga for the Knights. Titans parallel checklist. Club Heroes Jerome Hughes for Storm. Felice Kafusi parallel for the Dolphins. Converters Jermaine Isako for the Dolphins. Wade Egan parallel for the Warriors. Rising Stars Charlie Geimer for the Eels. Selwyn Cobbo parallel for the Broncos. Converters Kyle Flanagan for the Dragons. Moses Leota parallel for Panthers. Adam Reynolds, a gold parallel for the Broncos. Number 53. Rising Stars, Kai Pierce Paul for the Knights. Cameron Murray parallel for the Rabbitohs. Women's NRL, Samima Torfa for the Raiders. Jermaine Hopgood parallel for the Eels. Rising Stars, Tony Francis for the Titans. Connor Tracy parallel for the Bulldogs. Season to remember, Connor Tracy for the Bulldogs. Dominic Young parallel for the Roosters. Fan faves, Greg Marshew for the Knights. Morgan Smithies parallel for the Raiders. That'll be right. Fan faves, Connor Watson for the Roosters. Ruben Cotter parallel for the Cowboys. Greg Marciu in the base. Rising Stars, Elia for the Roosters. Jamal Fogarty parallel for the Raiders. And last packet for box number 6. Season to remember, Lachlan Galvin for the Tigers. And Jeremiah Nanai parallel for the Cowboys. Alright, I'm going to be back in just a sec, guys. I'm just going to mute the video. Grab a drink and I'll be right back. Alright, we're back. Hope everyone is still here. Let's get back into it with box number 7. Let's go. Season to remember, Jamal Fogarty for the Raiders. Mitchell Barnett parallel for the Warriors. Fan faves, Alex Johnston for the Rabbitohs. Broncos parallel checklist. Rising Stars, Peter for the Rabbitohs. Scott Sorensen parallel for the Panthers. Club Heroes, Bailey Haywood for the Bulldogs. Mitchell Moses parallel for the Eels. Women's NRL, Abby Church for the Eels. Max King parallel for the Bulldogs. Gold parallel, Keon Kolomatangi. Number 73 for the Rabbitohs. Rising Stars, Lachlan Galvin for the Tigers. Victor Radley, parallel for the Roosters. Season to remember, Adam Dewey for the Tigers. Murray Talagi, parallel for the Cowboys. Fan faves, Josh King for the Storm. Phoenix Crossland, parallel for the Knights. Rising Stars, Ethan Bullymore for Manly. And Tackling Machines, Jacob Little, number 61 for the Dragons. Jaden Sewer, parallel for the Dragons. Converters, Kira Dibb for the Cowboys. Xavier Coates, parallel for Storm. Women's NRL, Zahara Tamara for the Raiders. Alifiana Kampi Era, parallel for Titans. Fan faves in the team for Raiders. Rising Stars, Lazarus for the Storm. And Roger Tuivasa, check parallel for Warriors. Season to remember, Tamir Martin for the Warriors. Tony Staggs, parallel for Broncos. Fan phase, Tegan Berry for the Dragons. Isaac Tago, parallel for Panthers. Rising Stars, Josiah for the Broncos. Joe Offengowie, parallel for the Eels. Women's Gold, parallel number 57. Roosters Checklist. Salami Kickout, parallel for the Bulldogs. Club Heroes, Fletcher Sharp for the Knights. Spencer Lanu, parallel for the Roosters. Showcase of Alami Kickout for the Bulldogs. Tommy Turbo, parallel for Manly. Retirements, Luke Keary for the Roosters. Samula Fanu, parallel for the Tigers. Rising Stars, Chevy Stewart for the Raiders. Nico Hines, parallel for the Sharks. Converters, Kalen Ponga for the Knights. Dane Gagai, parallel for the Knights. Roosters Women's Checklist. Knights Parallel Dragons Parallel Checklist. Rising Stars, Liam Henry for the Panthers. Trent LaRoe, parallel for the Storm. Season 2 Remember, Trey Fuller for the Dolphins. Keanu Kinney, parallel for Titans. Fan phase, Thomas Hazelton for the Sharks. Dallin Vatine Zelezniak, parallel for the Warriors. Rising Stars, Rory Owen for the Eels. Reece Welsh, parallel for the Broncos. Fan faves, Kalen Ponga for the Knights. KO Weeks, parallel for the Raiders. Rising Stars, Lily Ann White for the Knights. Tavita Totola, parallel for the Rabbitohs. Showcase, a group card. Jeremy Marshall King, parallel for the Dolphins. Converters, Adam Reynolds for the Broncos. Manly, parallel checklist. Rising Stars, Liam Eason for the Sharks. Adam Dewey, parallel for the Tigers. Season to remember, Clinton Gutherson for the Eels. Thomas Hazelton, parallel for the Sharks. 4 packets left in box number 7. Rising Stars, Jacob Bostock for the Dolphins. Cowboys, parallel checklist. Season 2 remember, Cameron Munster for Storm. Joseph Tarpanay, parallel for the Raiders. Fan faves, Will Penasini for the Eels, Jack Whiten parallel for the Rabbitohs. Rising Stars, Dimitri for the Warriors. Hamafito parallel for the Dolphins. And that is the end of that box. Let's get into box number 8. Club Heroes, Ajay Gray for the Rabbitohs. Matthew Tomoko, parallel for the Raiders. Club Heroes, Sarah Togatuki for the Tigers. James Tedesco, parallel for the Roosters. Season to remember, Alifiana Khan Piera for Titans. Eels, parallel checklist. Fan faves, Jacob Preston for the Bulldogs. Reed Marnie, parallel for the Bulldogs. Rising Stars, Samula Fainu for the Tigers. Sam Walker, parallel for the Roosters. Episode Carousel, gold parallel for the Tigers. Number 1, nice low one. There we go. Lee Marshall with the trade for the Tigers. Reese Robson, parallel for the Cowboys. Women's NRL, Taylor Predibon for the Knights. Scott Drinkwater, parallel for the Cowboys. Few Raz winners in this break, always good to see. The Converters, Jesse Southwell for the Knights. Rising Stars, Blake Steep for the Roosters. Parallel, Canberra Raiders checklist. Season to remember, Jared Herrera-Hargreaves for the Roosters. Keon Kolomatangi, parallel for the Rabbitohs. Rising Stars, Dion Tapua for the Rabbitohs. Brian To'o, parallel for Panthers. Has anyone heard about Captain Morgs walking from Cairns to the Gold Coast in his butcher's gumboots? Don't know how comfortable that would be and how the feet would be going. Fan faves, the hammer for the Dolphins. Jermaine Isako, parallel for the Dolphins. Yes, Captain Morgs raising money for men's health. I can't even think of what the organisation is that he's doing it for now. Rising Stars, Casey Array for the Dragons. Ruben Garrick, parallel for Manly. He's the club captain where my young girls play, Parkwood Sharks. And he's getting back on Saturday, so there's a big buzz around the club. Showcase Mitchell Moses for the Eels. Apasai Coruscant, parallel for the Tigers. Fan faves in the team for Manly. Cameron McInnes, parallel for the Sharks. Rising Stars, Fletcher Sharp for the Knights. Latrell Mitchell, parallel for the Rabbitohs. Women's NRL, Tally Holmes for the Sharks. Dean Mariner, parallel for the Broncos. Season to remember, Kira Dibb for the Cowboys. Isaiah Katoa, parallel for Dolphins. Fan faves, Alex Twile for the Tigers. Tolator Koala, parallel for Manly. Converters, Latrell Mitchell for the Rabbitohs. Tamir Martin, parallel for the Warriors. Rising Stars, Georgia Hanaway for the Sharks. Dream Buller, parallel for the Tigers. Showcase Ethan Strange for the Raiders. Blake Brayley, parallel for the Sharks. Gold parallel number 82. Ali Brigginshaw for the Broncos. I wonder if they would have lost that third game if she would have still called that she'd be back next year. Knights parallel checklist. Definitely one of the pioneers for the women to get the game to where it is today. Rising Stars, Lehe Hopawate for Manly. Tyrell Sloan, parallel for the Dragons. Rising Stars, Bailey Haywood for the Bulldogs. Jojo Fafita, parallel for the Titans. Converters, Taylor Preston for the Sharks. Cameron Munster, parallel for Storm. Women's NRL, Jasmine Peters for the Cowboys, David Fafita, parallel for Titans. Rising Stars for the Storm, Tohu Harris, parallel for the Warriors. Fan faves, Julia Robinson for the Broncos, Ryan Pappenhausen, parallel for the Storm. Season to remember, Stacey Awaka for the Broncos, Ezra Mam, parallel for the Broncos. Fan faves, Jake Trbojevic for Manly, Isaiah Yeo, parallel for Panthers. Rising Stars, Skylar Adams for the Broncos, Micah Sivo, parallel for the Eels. Rising Stars, Harrison Edwards for the Cowboys. Black Authentics, number 28, Matthew Tomoko. Another team he traded for with the Raiders. Lee Marshall, number 28. Greg Marshew, parallel for the Knights. Making a mess. Season to remember, Addo Carr for the Bulldogs. Panthers parallel checklist. Season to remember, Ben Hunt for the Dragons. Jack DeBellin parallel for the Dragons. Fan phase, James Tedesco for the Roosters. Will Penasini parallel for the Eels. Rising Stars, Josiah for the Titans. Matt Burton parallel for the Bulldogs. And that's the end of box number 8. Let's move these out of the way. And we'll get stuck into box number 9. Fourth last box. Let's go get it. Women's NRL, Lauren Brown, number 36. Rising Stars, Jack Bostock for the Dolphins and Cowboys parallel checklist. Rising Stars, Chevy Stewart for the Raiders. Nico Hines, parallel for the Sharks. Season to remember, Trey Fuller for the Dolphins. Dane Gagai, parallel for the Knights. Fan phase, Thomas Hazelton for the Sharks. Dragons, parallel checklist. Converters, Pauline Razabel for the Tigers. James Tedesco, parallel for the Roosters. Club Heroes, Regan Campbell Gillard for the Eels. Scott Drinkwater, parallel for the Cowboys. Rising Stars, Blake Steep for the Roosters. Raiders, parallel checklist. Season to remember, Jared Herrera-Hargreaves for the Roosters. Keon Kolomatangi, parallel for the Rabbitohs. Fan faves, the Hammer for Dolphins. Jermaine Isako, parallel for Dolphins. Rising Stars, Casey Array for the Dragons. Ruben Garrick, parallel for Manly. Season to remember, Tamir Martin for the Warriors. Katoni Staggs, parallel for Broncos. Fan faves, Tegan Berry for the Dragons. Isaac Tago, parallel for Panthers. Rising Stars, Josiah for the Broncos. Joe Offengowie, parallel for the Eels. Club Heroes, Jack Whiten for the Rabbitohs. Balami Kickout, parallel for the Bulldogs. Titans, Shaylee Bent in the Women's NRL. Spencer Lenu, parallel for the Roosters. Women's NRL, Gail Broughton for the Broncos. Dallin Watine Zalesniak, parallel for the Warriors. Rising Stars, Liam Henry for the Panthers. Trent LaRoe, parallel for the Storm. Rising Stars, Harrison Edwards for the Cowboys. Greg Marzu, parallel for the Knights. Converters, Apasai Coruscant for the Tigers. Jack DeBellin, parallel for the Dragons. Patil Vet Welsh, Women's NRL for the Tigers. Ryan Pappenhausen, parallel for Storm. Rising Stars, Bailey Haywood for the Bulldogs. As you can see in the background, guys, we are still busting and sorting and listing on the website Jojo Fafita, parallel for the Titans. I just got a glimpse of him in the background that took the attention. That is 25 traders on the table. Season to remember, Ben Hunt for the Dragons. Tamir Martin, parallel for the Warriors. Converters, Aromi Tietzel for the Broncos. Keanu Kinney, parallel for Titans. Rising Stars, Rory Owen for the Eels. Reece Walsh, parallel for the Broncos. Season to remember, Addo Carr for the Bulldogs. Panthers parallel checklist. Fan phase, James Tedesco for the Roosters. Will Penasini, parallel for the Eels. Rising Stars, Josiah for the Titans. Matt Burton, parallel for the Bulldogs. And we have a second showcase group card. So we'll get to randomize both of them. Apasai Coruscant, parallel for the Tigers. Gold parallel. Number 79. Micah Sivo for the Eels. Cameron McInnes, parallel for the Sharks. Fan phase, Julia Robinson for the Broncos. Dean Mariner, parallel for the Broncos. Rising Stars, Dion for the Rabbitohs. Brian To'o, parallel for Panthers. Season to remember, Cameron Munster for the Storm. Joseph Tarpanay, parallel for the Raiders. Fan phase, Will Penasini for the Eels, Jack Whiten parallel for the Rabbitohs. Rising Stars, Dimitri for the Warriors. Scoring Machines, number 67. Tackling Machines, sorry. Harry Grant for the Storm. The Hammer parallel for Dolphins. Showcase, Cameron Murray for the Rabbitohs. Tommy Turbo parallel for Manly. Fan phase in the team for Rabbitohs. Samula Finu parallel for Tigers. Alright, 3 boxes to go. Tidy these up and get into our next one. Box number 10. Converters, Jamal Fogarty for the Raiders, Reese Robson parallel for the Cowboys. Gold parallel in the checklist, number 32 for the Warriors. Reed Marnie parallel for the Bulldogs. Rising Stars, Samula Finu for the Tigers. Sam Walker parallel for the Roosters. Season to remember, David Armstrong for the Knights. Tommy Turbo parallel for Manly. Fan phase, Tohu Harris for the Warriors. Finu for the Tigers, parallel. Rising Stars, Chevy Stewart for the Raiders. Nico Hines parallel for the Sharks. Club Heroes, Ethan Strange for the Raiders. Dane Gagai parallel for the Knights. Shania Power, Women's NRL for the Cowboys. Dragons parallel checklist. Rising Stars, Dion for the Rabbitohs. Brian To'o parallel for Panthers. Showcase, Lindsay Collins for the Roosters. Parramatta Eels checklist. Women's NRL Gold Checklist, Gold Parallel 104, Sophie Holliman. For the Raiders, Rising Stars, Liam Henry for Panthers, and Trent LaRoe parallel for the Storm. Season to remember, Dale Finucane for the Sharks, Keanu Kinney parallel for the Titans, Fan Phase Mackenzie Wiki for the Raiders, Dylan Watine Zalesniak parallel for the Warriors, Rising Stars Rory Owen for the Eels, Reece Welsh parallel for the Broncos, Fan Faves for the Rabbitohs, Dean Mariner parallel for the Broncos. Showcase David Fafita for the Titans, Panthers parallel checklist. Fan Faves in the team for the Eels, Will Penasini parallel for the Eels. Rising Stars Harrison Edwards for the Cowboys, Greg Marzu parallel for the Knights. And our Premiership predictor. Definitely one of the popular teams this year, number 78 for the Bulldogs. Alright, Jack DeBellin parallel for the Dragons. Rising Stars Josiah for the Titans. Matt Burton parallel for the Bulldogs. Season to remember, Dally Cherry Evans for Manly. James Tedesco parallel for the Roosters. Fan Faves Nathan Cleary for Panthers. Scott Drinkwater parallel for the Cowboys. Rising Stars Blake Stoop for the Roosters. Raiders parallel checklist. The Converters Jocelyn Keller for the Roosters. Keon Kolomatangi parallel for the Rabbitohs. Club Heroes, Bree Chester for the Cowboys. Ryan Pappenhausen parallel for the Storm. Casey Ray, Women's NRL for the Dragons. Jermaine Isako, parallel for the Dolphins. Converters, Kira Dibb for the Cowboys. Rising Stars, Casey Ray for the Dragons. Ruben Garrick, parallel for Manly. Season to remember, Isaac Tago for Panthers. Apasai Coruscant, parallel for the Tigers. Fan faves, Alexander Brimson for the Titans. Cameron McInnes, parallel for the Sharks. Women's NRL, Georgia Hale for the Titans. Matthew Tomoko, parallel for the Raiders. Rising Stars, Fletcher Sharp for the Knights. Latrell Mitchell, parallel for the Rabbitohs. Season to remember, Rebecca Pollard for the Tigers. Isaiah Katoa, parallel for the Dolphins. Rising Stars, Bailey Haywood for the Bulldogs. Jojo Fafita, parallel for Titans. Season to remember, Madison Bartlett for the Raiders. Tamir Martin, parallel for the Warriors. Fan fave, Yasmin Clydesdale for the Knights. Tolator Koala, parallel for Manly. And last packet for box number 10. Let's go. Rising Stars, Georgia Hanaway for the Sharks, and Dream Buller, parallel for the Tigers. Once again, let's tidy these ones up, get them out of the way, and we will get stuck into box number 11. Right after that drink. I've done it again. That's alright. Too used to busting cases for the site where that's what we do most of the time. That's alright. Jessica Surgis, Women's NRL for the Roosters. Dylan Lucas, parallel for the Knights. Rising Stars, Caleb Novale for Manly. Raymond Faitala Mariner, parallel for the Dragons. Season to remember, Jock Madden for the Broncos. Harry Grant, parallel for Storm. Fan Faves, Hamoli Olika R2 for Manly, Big Tino parallel for the Titans. Rising Stars, Joe Chan for Storm. Jackson Ford parallel for the Warriors. Season to remember, Zach Lomax for the Dragons. Luciano Leilua parallel for the Dragons. Converters, Gold parallel Taylor Preston for the Sharks. Payne Haas parallel for Broncos. Club Heroes, Valami Kickout for the Bulldogs. Nathan Cleary parallel for Panthers. Showcase, Patrick Carrigan for the Broncos. Jeremiah Nanai parallel for Cowboys. Women's NRL Sharks checklist in the gold parallel number 62. Morgan Smithies parallel for the Raiders. Rising Stars, Kai Pearce Paul for the Knights. Cameron Murray parallel for the Rabbitohs. Season to remember, Chad Townsend for the Cowboys. Felice Kafusi parallel for Dolphins. Fan Phase, Dream Buller for the Tigers. Molly Olika-Atu parallel for Manly. Rising Stars, Samuel Stonestreet for the Sharks. Our Dally M predictor in the men's, number 25 for the Knights, Glenn Howlett. Tigers parallel checklist. Converters, Jesse Southwell for the Knights. William Kennedy parallel for the Sharks. Rising Stars, Benjamin Takura for the Broncos. Dylan Brown parallel for the Eels. Season to remember, Jack Whiten for the Rabbitohs. Stephen Crichton, parallel for the Bulldogs. Fan phase, Jakaya Whitfield for the Cowboys. Angus Crichton, parallel for the Roosters. Rising Stars, Max Plath for the Dolphins. Helam Aluki, parallel for the Cowboys. Showcase, Ryan Pappenhausen for the Storm. Ethan Strange, parallel for Raiders. Fan phase in the team for Storm. Rabbitohs, parallel checklist. Season to remember, Jaden Campbell for the Titans. Sean Lane, parallel for the Eels. Fan phase, Stephen Crichton for the Bulldogs. Jacob Carraz, parallel for the Bulldogs. Rising Stars, Evie McGrath for the Tigers. Roosters, parallel checklist. Rising Stars, Jacob Laben for the Warriors. Herbie Farmworth, parallel for the Dolphins. Converters, Ruben Garrick for Manly. Tommy Talau, parallel for Manly. Tamika Upton, Women's NRL for the Knights. Charlie Staines, parallel for the Tigers. Fan phase, Patrick Carrigan for the Broncos. Storm parallel checklist. Rising Stars, Morgan Smithies for the Raiders. Jesse Ramian, parallel for the Sharks. Rising Stars, Jai Gray for the Rabbitohs. Liam Martin, parallel for Panthers. Season to remember, Bradman Best for the Knights. Leo Thompson, parallel for the Knights. Fan faves, Dallin Wateen Zalesniak for the Warriors. Blake Laurie, parallel for the Dragons. Fourth last packet in box number 11. Rising Stars, Maverick Geyer for Panthers. Eliza Katoa, parallel for Storm. Gold parallel, Jeremiah Nanai. Number 12 for the Cowboys. Rising Stars, Harry Hayes for the Bulldogs. Milwaukee Fodawaika parallel for Titans. Club Heroes, James Tedesco for the Roosters. Chance Nicole Klokstad parallel for the Warriors. Women's NRL, Grace Kemp for the Raiders. Adam Reynolds parallel for the Broncos. And that's another box down. We'll just slide them ones to the side. Accidentally ripped that box up into the bin. That's right, we'll use that pile to fill the other boxes up. Alright. Last box, box number 12. Here we go, here we go, here we go now. Rising Stars, Hapoi for the Bulldogs. Jaden Campbell parallel for the Titans. Season to remember, Jock Madden for the Broncos. Harry Grant parallel for the Storm. I don't remember pulling the white authentic. I know we've got the team and the black. So still looking for the white from what I can remember. Fan Phase, Hamoli Olika R2 for Manly. Big Tino parallel for the Titans. We have the Premiership Predictor, the Dally M Predictor. Season to remember, Sanua Taruva for Panthers. Jacob Little parallel for the Dragons. Fan Phase, Jaden Campbell for the Titans. Nick Meaney parallel for Storm, excuse me. Club Heroes, Alexis for the Dragons. Payne Haas parallel for the Broncos. Rising Stars, Jackson Purdue for the Cowboys. Kai Pearce-Paul parallel for the Knights. Jamie Chapman, Women's NRL for the Titans. Nathan Cleary parallel for Panthers. Converters, Mitchell Moses for the Eels. Justin Olam parallel for the Tigers. Rising Stars, Benjamin Takura for Broncos. Dylan Brown parallel for the Eels. Women's NRL, Pauline Razabel for the Tigers. Sharks parallel checklist. Season 2 remember, Jack Whiten for the Rabbitohs. Stephen Crichton, parallel for Bulldogs. Fan faves, Jakaya Whitfield for the Cowboys. Angus Crichton, parallel for the Roosters. Rising Stars, Max Plath for the Dolphins. Helam Luki, parallel for the Cowboys. The builder and his puppy have turned up, if you can hear Mum in the background. Right, there's Dad. Rising Stars, Lycan King for the Dragons. Luke Crooks, parallel for Manly. Yes, us as a family, we're a sucker for puppies, and look at this one, how can you not be? Hello, go on.
Hey, Cheeky.
Yes, I'm busy, go on. Showcase Lachlan Galvin for the Tigers. Ethan Strange, parallel for the Raiders. My brother works for the builder, and just the dog's name's Billy because he knows with how big and dopey he's going to be. He's going to call him Silly Billy and all those sort of names. So, yes. Jamie Chapman in the gold parallel, number 81 for the Titans. Rabbitohs parallel checklist. Rising Stars, Jacob Laban for the Warriors. Herbie Farmworth, parallel for the Dolphins. Season to remember, Bradman Best for the Knight. Tommy Talau, parallel for Manly. Don't know where that pack got there, but anyway. Fan faves, Dallin Mateen Zalesniak for the Warriors. Charlie Staines, parallel for Tigers. Gold parallel for the Converters, Sam Walker. Jack Bostock, parallel for the Dolphins. How about we put it in the right one? Greg Marshew, number 88. Gold parallel for the Knights. Rising Stars, Morgan Smithies for the Raiders. Jesse Ramian, parallel for the Sharks. Well, if you couldn't tell, I was struggling about halfway through, which is half the reason why I made sure I got up after that 6th box. And I'm glad I did, because I managed to find my second win. Showcase Luciano Leilua for the Dragons. Jai Arrow, parallel for the Rabbitohs. Converters, Zahara Tamara for the Raiders. Leo Thompson, parallel for the Knights. Women's NRL Broncos checklist. Blake Laurie, parallel for the Dragons. Fan phase in the team for Panthers. Maverick Gaia, Rising Stars for Panthers. Eliza Katoa, parallel for Storm. I was almost expecting a Panthers parallel then to go along. Rising Stars, Elia Nasio for the Roosters. Jamal Fogarty, parallel for the Raiders. Season to remember, Ronaldo Mulatalo for the Sharks. Titans, parallel checklist. We've got to beat that sun before it gets to the table. It's on its way. Fan phase, Ethan Strange for the Raiders. Wade Egan, parallel for the Warriors. Seventh last pack for the break. Rising Stars, Charlie Geimer for the Eels. Selwyn Cobbo, parallel for the Broncos. Brian To'o, fan faves for Panthers. Ruben Cotter, parallel for the Cowboys. And our white authentics. I've lost my team list. Where is it? There we go. Number 23, MJ's number. Greg Marsu for the Knights. Who was it? Glenn Howlett. Congratulations. Moses Leota, parallel for Panthers. Club Heroes, Connor Watson for the Roosters. Jermaine Hopgood, parallel for the Eels. Rising Stars, Tony Francis for the Titans. Connor Tracy, parallel for the Bulldogs. Season to remember, Tommy Talau for Manly. Dominic Young, parallel for the Roosters. And last but not least, here we go. Rising Stars, Joe Chan for Storm and Jackson Ford for the Warriors to finish it off. And all we have left to do now is to randomize our two showcase group cards. They will be done separately. Hopefully separate people will win them, but it has been known that the same name pops up on both occasions. And I have been meaning to put into the break descriptions, not the same person, but not the same spot can win. So if you have multiple teams and you happen to win with different teams, well, that's different. But the same team being the winner, I need to change that. Just for the two showcases. Obviously, if we do a showcase and then a legends, well then that's different again. Everyone gets included in both. All right, here we go. Number 1, number 2, and lucky last, number 3. Storm, Nicholas Verway for our first one. Let's reset that list. There we go. And go again 3 times around the merry-go-round. There's number 1, there's number 2, and here is number 3. Bulldogs, Craig Milson. There we go. That's the way we like it. Nice and easy. Alright guys, that's it. That's all. We are halfway through this break. 25 Traders Titanium is done. But we'll be back in the morning to finish it off with the 21 Traders Case. Until then,